The court finds this interaction between counsel and Laura diminishes the credibility and veracity of Laura's responses during cross-examination. The court finds it impossible to determine the date of any alleged not because it is impossible, but rather because she failed to seek even a minimal level of care for her high-risk condition. The verdict is in. Judge Matta has officially ruled on the Clayton versus Laura Owens case. And boy, oh boy, it feels like sweet, sweet justice has truly been served, not just for Clayton, but for all of her previous victims. So today we are going to break down and read that ruling for you. This should be a fun celebratory video, so sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hello, everyone. Welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cult, true crime, and unique spiritual practices, and honestly, just human behavior in general. So if you like this sort of thing, please consider subscribing. I would absolutely love to have you here. And if you want more, then please consider joining my Patreon. I will leave the link to that in the pinned comment down below. Guys, this is a bonus video this week. I don't normally do videos back to back, but I released my video yesterday, and then all this news came out about the Clayton Echard trial and Laura Owens, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to break this down. So welcome to this hump day special, if you will. Let's jump right into it. Like I said in my intro, there has been a ruling. If you are like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Erin, please watch this video or go check out Dave Neal's extensive playlist. There are also just so many other great creators that have been covering this too. We've got Megan Fox, we've got Tilted Lawyer, we've got some really fantastic people. Lauren, whose last name I cannot pronounce, who actually gave us the fantastic court footage. I want to shout her out as well. So guys, let's break it all down. So I'm going to skip over some of the procedural history of this thing because there are so many videos on Dave's channel that I just want you all to go over there and support him, give him the views. So I'm just going to scroll past all of this. So this brings us to this section called Findings of Fact, which I love because we have been alleging for 9 months now that Laura Owens has been lying about a lot of the things that she's claiming have happened. So the petitioner, Laura Owens, contacted the respondent, who is Clayton, through LinkedIn. They met on May 17th of 2023 to locate potential investment properties in Scottsdale. She has a podcast, real estate investing company, and buys and sells horses. Between May 18th through 20th, the parties viewed some properties, and on the evening of May 20th, Clayton invited Laura over to his home, which she accepted. After she arrived, Clayton said that he was high and offered her one, which she accepted. During the evening and early morning of May 21st of last year, 2023, both parties agreed that petitioner Laura performed oral on respondent to completion, and that's in quotes, twice. Petitioner testified that she did not want to have intercourse, but that Clayton stuck it in briefly. Her implication that Clayton initiated sexual intercourse without consent was not alleged initially in the court filings. It was not alleged until 2024. At trial, Laura testified that the parties had intercourse and that it was the R word, which, how awful, how awful. She testified that Clayton was too high to remember the intercourse due to his voluntary intoxication. She believes she became pregnant on May 20th. She testified that after May 20th, her menstrual cycle stopped and it did not resume until November of 2023. She also claimed to have PCOS since the age of 17, so she does not have regular periods. She also has a history of epilepsy. Petitioner testified that she's been pregnant 4 times. Each time, the alleged father believed she fabricated the pregnancy and doctored medical records. Now, this was something during the trial we were like, oh man, we didn't really get to hear about her pattern of behavior, which is something that could really help Clayton's side, but it sounds like they were able to submit a lot of evidence that they weren't able to necessarily present at trial, and the judge was obviously able to review all of that evidence, which is fantastic. On May 24th, petitioner asked respondent to prepare written purchase offers for 2 properties that she wanted to purchase. She asked Clayton, as her realtor, to prepare those purchase offers and to submit them to the seller or the seller's agent. He prepared the purchase offers and she signed on or around May 24th, but Clayton never submitted them to the seller or the seller's agent. Laura then asked Clayton if he'd heard anything about the offers. Respondent advised that he had not heard back from the seller. Petitioner testified that she advised the real estate board and action was taken. On May 31st, petitioner took a home pregnancy test which showed a faint positive result. She testified that after multiple positive pregnancy tests, she told Clayton that she was pregnant. She denies using hormones, someone else's urine, or altering the test at all. She found Clayton's reaction to be hostile and dismissive. On June 1st, she went to Banner Healthcare and informed the nurse that she believed she may be pregnant, and she asked for a test to determine whether she was pregnant. The test results from Banner Health Urgent Care was positive for pregnancy. She also testified that for more than 6 months prior to 2023, she was not sexually active with any other men. Based on this, she testified that she believed she was pregnant and that Clayton was the only potential father. On June 19th, she went to Clayton's home at his request. Clayton provided a pregnancy test for Laura to take. Conflicting testimony makes it difficult to ascertain whether the test was taken in front of the respondent or with the bathroom door closed due to a shy bladder. Both parties agree the test was positive. So this is where we start really seeing how the judge is taking literally all information into account, because I distinctly remember during the trial on June 10th that Laura testified that she did take the test in front of Clayton. Like, he made her take the test in front of him. And if my memory is correct, Clayton was like shaking his head no, as if like, no, you didn't take the test in front of me. So it's interesting that the judge is writing in her official write-up that there is conflicting testimony. It could be between Clayton and Laura, or it could be like Laura's conflicting testimony because she clearly changes her story around. In the something to consider email, the court finds the language to imply that the respondent was attempting to buy into the idea that rubbing or grinding their private parts together may have led to a pregnancy. The court, however, does not find the email conclusive that respondent believed her to be pregnant with his children, but rather an attempt to consider her ascertains. So what I believe this is referring to Clayton responding to Laura and saying, I don't think that you're pregnant because we didn't have intercourse, but maybe something got on you from when we were rubbing up against each other and somehow a sperm was able to impregnate your egg. It would have to be like perfect timing, perfect amount. So the court is ruling that this does not mean that he was saying, yeah, you're probably pregnant with my kid. This is not an admission of him taking fathership, apparently. In the something to consider email, respondent maintains that the lack of intercourse would preclude him from being the father of the fetuses. The email does not deny the pregnancy test was positive. In the email, respondent suggested that the positive test was the result of the petitioner's epilepsy medication. Petitioner emailed her doctor. The subject of the email is pregnancy and seizure med. Laura denies sending respondent an ultrasound video, citing instead that Greg Gillespie hacked into her email and sent the video to respondent, which Dave Neal debunked this because apparently she sent this ultrasound video to him and Reality Steve, which fascinating. Laura testifies that on July 2nd, 2023, she anonymously sought care at a Planned Parenthood in Los Angeles while she failed to provide records of any Planned Parenthood appointment, anonymous or under an alias. Clayton presumably sought records from all Mission Viejo Planned Parenthoods, as that is where, up until today, Laura disclosed she sought care. Laura testified that she had the sonogram at a Planned Parenthood in California, either anonymously or taken under a pseudonym, and changed the location to prevent Clayton from tracking down the records. The court was not provided with those records at trial because they probably never existed. She testified that on July 23rd, she experienced bleeding and passed two small fleshy objects smaller in size than her hand. She took pictures of the tissue and sought telehealth assistance. Petitioner testified that she texted a miscarriage hotline and sought telehealth assistance. The telehealth provider told her that it was hard to tell if she miscarried and that she should monitor the situation and seek further care as needed. Laura chose not to seek in-person care that would have confirmed if she had been, still was, or had miscarried. The court finds the hard-to-tell component of the telehealth visit was due to the nature of telehealth and the inability to provide care in the form of an exam, HCG test, blood test, ultrasound, or sonogram. Instead of seeking in-person care, Laura chose to take another HCG home test on July 25th, which was positive. Petitioner again took an at-home test instead of seeking care on August 1st, 2023. She testified that she made multiple appointments to see Dr. McCool. 3 of the 4 appointments were rescheduled and then canceled when the petitioner tested positive for the Rona. Dr. McCool's records indicate 44 pages of records confirming making and canceling appointments. The court was not provided with evidence of the positive Rona test, but maintains that the nature of her high-risk pregnancy would warrant a visit to the emergency room, who would be equipped to care for a high-risk pregnancy wherein the mother was Rona positive. So basically saying, well, if you're really concerned about the life of 2 unborn children, we would still see you even if you had COVID. Like, even if you had this, the doctors would still see you because of just the high risk of the pregnancy and your health at that point. Because if something goes wrong with twins inside you, it could create implications, like physical implications for the mother as well, I would imagine. In August 2023, the parties agreed to a DNA test through Ravgen. Petitioner paid $720 to Ravgen for the test, but the respondent failed to provide a sample, and petitioner canceled the test on August 18th. And this is interesting that it says this right here. The court does not find the intimate contact between Laura and Clayton resulted in a pregnancy. This is before we see her ultimate ruling. The court finds that if Laura was pregnant, it is profoundly unlikely that the conception occurred because of rubbing, grinding, or oral. During this litigation, if Laura had maintained consistently an allegation of SA coupled with a police report or physical examination, the court may find differently. Evidence and testimony, however, do not support this inconsistent contention. Laura admitted to changing an HCG test result to reflect 31,000. She further testified she altered the document using Adobe, but not Adobe Acrobat. In late September or early October, both parties submitted samples to Ravgen for DNA testing. October 16th, the petitioner's blood was drawn, and the results were HCG levels of 102. Petitioner changed the results to reflect 102,000. I think it was actually 132,000, around there. Petitioner testified that on October 18th, she was aware the alleged pregnancies were not viable and filed the request for pre-decree mediation in the hopes that at mediation, she could tell the respondent that the pregnancy was no longer viable, which makes no sense. So that is October 18th, okay? Upon denial of her request, however, she did not file a motion to dismiss or make other arrangements to advise Clayton of the development. The court finds this testimony uncredible and a misuse of judicial resources. And what's interesting to me is someone had mentioned in a Reddit feed in the Justice for Clayton Reddit that this was what the judge was taking notes on, just like nonstop during the actual hearing. So I can't help but wonder if this is just her like bullet point thoughts happening. Like, this testimony is really crazy. There's no proof that she just told me she doctored this HCG test. This testimony feels like a waste of time. This court finds that this testimony is uncredible. Like, I wonder if she's just like thinking this and it's like written up how she thought of it during the hearing, or if she like went through and was like, I need to put all of this on paper so that it is literally on record so this woman cannot do this stuff again. Petitioner was not treated by Dr. McCool or Higley as testified to in her November 2nd, 2023 hearing on the IAH. Her alleged pregnancy was not treated by Dr. McCool, Dr. Higley, or any other in-person obstetrician or gynecologist. The court finds failure to seek in-person care for a high-risk pregnancy to be both unreasonable and uncredible. The court further finds that going to Banner for a pregnancy test, but not the passage of fetal tissue, to be unreasonable and uncredible. A reasonable person, if seeking emergency room care to confirm a pregnancy, would not rely on telehealth to confirm the non-viability of the pregnancies, which I feel like all of us have been saying. Like, a reasonable person would be going to the doctor and making sure her children were safe. A reasonable person would let Clayton go to her doctor appointments with her so that he could see it with his own eyes. Like, that's the biggest point, I think, for since we found out about this last fall, was this feels so unreasonable, and it's so validating and great to see it like literally on paper. And I just really hope that Mike and Clayton and Greg and all her previous victims of whatever other lies she's made feel so vindicated right now. Petitioner testified that on November 14th, 2023, she sought OBGYN services from a facility, MomDoc, to determine whether she was allegedly still pregnant. At that appointment, petitioner took 2 pregnancy tests that were both negative. She testified that she currently weighs 91 pounds but weighed 133 in November. During her MomDoc appointment, she experienced significant swelling in her abdomen and felt pregnant. The court was presented with videos dated September 19th, 2023 and October 9th, 2023. Petitioner sent respondent of her abdomen as evidence of pregnancy. Dr. Medchill testified that while she appeared pregnant, that alone was not conclusive of pregnancy. Petitioner denies tampering with HCG tests, but does admit to altering and fabricating ultrasounds and sonograms. She further testified that she changed the HCG numbers on 2 of the results. The court finds little, if any, evidence in altering the test itself, for which she denies, and altering the results, which she did tamper with by her own admission. During her cross-examination, it became profoundly obvious that counsel for the petitioner was attempting to coach her answers. So I'm so glad that she clocked that. Respondent's counsel, identifying the issue, moved between counsel and the petitioner. From that point forward, the petitioner began to exhibit extreme anxiety and unwillingness to answer questions. The court had to remind Laura twice that counsel would ask a question and she would need to answer it. At this time, petitioner pushed back her chair and advised the court that she did not think she was being treated fairly. The court attempted to redirect petitioner to no avail. At this time, petitioner became emotional and asked for a brief recess, which the court granted. The court finds this interaction between counsel and Laura diminishes the credibility and veracity of Laura's responses during cross examination. The court finds it impossible to determine the date of any alleged miscarriage, not because it is impossible, but rather because she failed to seek even a minimal level of care for her high risk condition. Failure to demonstrate confirmation of ongoing pregnancy is a purposeful way to ensure respondent would not be able to determine if she was pregnant, and if so, for how long the pregnancy had lasted. Like, wow. It's so nice that even just like at surface level, because something that Laura's been really passionate about is sharing her side of the story, sharing her side of the story. You don't even hear my side of the story. Stop calling me a liar. She's threatened legal action to anyone that speaks out against her. Many people were afraid to speak out or cover this, including massive publications. I mean, her parents, one's a journalist and the other's on the radio. Like, she has connections to the media. So people were like afraid to cover this story. She comes from money. I think US Weekly just covered this week, and they weren't even 100% accurate. They called her his ex, which she isn't. It was a one-night stand that turned into all of this. And that's what I was really concerned about going into this case was there's really no proof that she was pregnant, but is there proof that she was not pregnant? Like, if you have to present physical proof that she is pregnant to determine pregnancy, wouldn't that mean you would have to submit proof also that she wasn't pregnant? So I was like, what if this just becomes a total logistical nightmare and Clayton doesn't get to see justice? That was what my fear was. But these last two bullet points, the court finds it impossible to determine the date of any alleged miscarriage, not because it's impossible, but rather because Laura failed to seek even a minimal level of care for her high-risk condition. That honestly says all you need to know. Dr. Medchill, this was Laura's team's medical expert. He's a retired OBGYN. He's delivered 30,000 babies. He testified that he reviewed approximately 200 pages of Laura's medical records that included summaries of her medications. He did not, however, review primary care or historical OBGYN records, which it's like, why are you even here then, bro? He testified that a false positive HCG test could be the result of epilepsy, anxiety medication, clozapine, horse urine, or IVF prescribed injections or trigger shots. When asked by the court, Dr. Medchill testified that he did not review any Planned Parenthood records from Mission Viejo or Los Angeles facilities because they didn't exist. He testified that he is 99.9% sure that Laura was pregnant based on the HCG tests. He did not change his perspective after her admissions on the stand that she altered more than one test to reflect a higher viable HCG number, which I feel like only shot himself in the foot. And I think Dave Neal interviewed a different medical expert. Maybe she was the one that testified. I don't think she was, though. But she said that, like, this guy, Dr. Medchill, he's retired. He has nothing to lose. He's not going to lose his medical license if he makes a false testimony. So he can really just cash in and say whatever the lawyer really wants him to say. Could it be considered perjury? Is it still unethical? Absolutely. But it could explain why, A, they picked someone retired, or someone retired was willing to do something like this. And B, it kind of answers that question of like, is this guy even credible? He didn't even look at her OBGYN records. Like, what? The court finds this doctor's testimony that 0.1% chance that petitioner received a false positive due to several medications she is in fact taking, possible trigger shot for HCG, and a prior history of ovarian cancer to diminish his credibility, especially given that records that the petition testified existed were not presented to her own expert for review and consideration. He testified that a blood level of HCG of 102 is proof of a non-viable pregnancy. While he testified that a non-viable pregnancy is still a pregnancy, the court finds that altering the number to reflect 102,000, which would be a viable pregnancy, to indicate that she intended for Clayton to believe that she was still pregnant with viable fetuses. Dr. Medshill concluded that the petitioner became pregnant on May 20th and ended with a spontaneous abortion in late October, early November, or possibly sooner in 2023. Given the alterations of the only records to indicate pregnancy, the court does not accept this conclusion. Dr. Medshill testified that woman may expel tissue during a spontaneous abortion or the pregnancy might remain in her body, ultimately being reabsorbed. Given that the petitioner testified under oath at a prior hearing that she was absolutely 24 weeks pregnant and had seen her doctor, presumably in person, the court does not accept that a 24-week-old twin fetus would be reabsorbed into a mother's body. The court further finds a miscarriage at that stage of pregnancy would result in emergency medical care and corresponding death certificates of the twins. If what Dr. Medshill testified to is true, and she miscarried much sooner, negating the need for the death certificates, then petitioner perjured herself at a prior hearing. This is all written down now. This is all on record, and I can't even begin to express to you how important this is. The fact that this is all written on record, all of the things that we have been speculating, and honestly, a lot of this evidence would not have been possible without Dave Neal and his supporters and the Justice for Clayton Reddit. The people in that Justice for Clayton Reddit have been working painstakingly hard. I don't know how they're doing it. I need to hire their researchers because they get information so quickly. And Dave posts multiple videos a day. I mean, he works so hard and has shown proof since day one. He has been able to show proof. And first of all, I don't think that without Dave Neal, this would have gotten as much coverage as it did. It might not have gotten any coverage. Clayton may have never been connected to Woodnick, his attorney, the same attorney who was representing Greg, one of her previous victims, who she did almost the exact same thing to, but he ended up not having the same result as Clayton, so he's vindicated now. And there wouldn't be all of the evidence that we have now that Woodnick could present to the court. So honestly, Dave Neal needs to take a whole victory lap. I don't know. We need to throw him a parade. Something needs to happen because honestly, without Dave Neal's coverage on this would not have, I don't know what would have happened for Clayton because he would have hired some other random attorney. I mean, Clayton's first hearing, he didn't even have an attorney. He represented himself, and that's the one thing that he lost. It was during his, I think, TPO or restraining order that she tried to get against him. And so thanks to people talking about this, thanks to Dave Neal, thanks to viewers being really, really, really passionate about this, is why this was able to happen. This just goes to show how power in numbers is so true, and one person being brave enough to just stand up and say, okay, I'll risk getting sued to fight for the truth and the justice in this case. So hats off to Dave Neal. Honestly, we all owe him a massive thank you. And some people owe him an apology, honestly. Looking at you, Nick Vial. All right, that's a conversation for a different day. So now she's going to summarize Clayton's team's medical expert. So this is an MD who reviewed petitioner's records and provided her analysis of the HCG results, and she used to be the associate medical director of Planned Parenthood in Florida and Pennsylvania. She testified that Planned Parenthood does not accept anonymous patients. They do not accept patients using an alias. Patients are required to provide a government-issued form of ID. She further testified that Planned Parenthood is not open on Sundays. When petitioner testified, she said she sought care on July 2nd, 2023, which was a Sunday. She testified that HCG does not confirm pregnancy. There must be serial HCG or an ultrasound and examination, which were never done. Or if they were done, they were never disclosed to the court, to Clayton, Dr. Medchill, or Dr. Deans. Dr. Deans reviewed the July 23rd, 2023 telehealth instructions that Laura proceed to an emergency room for additional evaluation and care. The instructions were not followed, but the petitioner called the abortion and miscarriage hotline, which also recommended and encouraged Laura seek in-person medical care. Dr. Deans testified that there was no data to indicate a conception date. After reviewing the records, Dr. Deans determined that the HCG tests were never dispositive of pregnancy and that the related miscarriage timeline, which included detailed analysis of the likely origin of HCG in petitioner's blood and urine, was not indicative of human gestational norms. She testified that heterophilic autoimmune responses due to exposure to animals could produce a positive HCG test, but the confirmation blood test would be negative. A prior history of cancer could also produce a positive HCG result. Petitioner has a prior history of ovarian cancer that prompted the surgical removal of her right ovary. Side note, or so she claimed. Familial HCG syndrome can also produce a false positive HCG test. Dr. Deans testified that syndrome is very rare, with only 10 known cases in the world. Horse tranquilizers can create a positive HCG result. And we know that Laura is around horses a lot. So now we get to Clayton's testimony. He denies all allegations of intercourse. He confirms that both parties were under the influence, but denies being high and denies memory loss because of that. He testified that around May 22nd, he realized his behavior with petitioner was unprofessional and he intended to discontinue any kind of intimate relationship with her. He testified that upon hearing this, Laura became very emotional. Clayton testified that he told Laura that he had submitted the offers to the seller. He testified that he did not believe the petitioner was really interested in the properties. When asked if he had received any response, Clayton told the petitioner that he had not, but he never told Laura the reason why no response had been received, because the offers had never been submitted. He made knowingly false statements to Laura about the real estate purchase offers. Respondent testified that petitioner sent him, this means Laura sent him approximately 500 text messages using 13 different phone numbers, threatening to leak information to the media, which she did leak information to the media and to Reddit, and is now or was upset that the media was now covering this. It's like, you told us about it. You told us. Respondent testified that petitioner reached out to the son, called his family, co-workers, and prior girlfriends, accusing him of being a deadbeat for not supporting her and the twins. Can you imagine? Clayton testified that he received the video from Laura and continued to correspond with her over that email string, which would reasonably prompt petitioner to advise she did not send that video, but she did not advise of that at the time. Laura emailed Clayton, "You can't say you haven't been given a voice when I have told you that I will have an abortion if we try things out for a few weeks and have a good reason for the child. These words feel menacing because you know I like you and want to try things out with you." The email continues, "You would be obliging to make the decision to date exclusively before deciding whether or not we had an abortion." Laura encouraged Clayton to have intercourse with her, citing that she was tight and already pregnant. Laura further emailed Clayton that he had control of the outcome of the pregnancy if we date exclusively and care for each other. On June 28th, 2023, she said, "If you think about it, Having intercourse with me is the safest thing you can do at this point. I'm already pregnant, and if we choose to go this route and trust each other enough to have intercourse, then we are at the same point where I would be taking pills. So there's no risk. Laura told respondent the twins were a boy and a girl. Remember, she had never gone in person to seek treatment besides going to Banner Health days after she discovered she was pregnant. Laura provided Clayton with a sonogram that was posted on YouTube 7 years ago. Laura admitted to this during her deposition. Laura sent a threatening letter to Clayton indicating her intention to sue him for $1.4 million in collateral allegations unless he agreed to dismiss this action that she initiated. Brilliantly worded. This judge is, mwah, we love her. Laura signed a release of records for Dr. Jeffrey Blake Higley at Women's Care. In a letter dated March 18th, 2024, the provider advised, "We have no record of treatment for the dates of service you request." Validity of petitioner's order of protection. So we're going to skip a little bit and move to this paragraph. Even if FARA did not foreclose this court's review, respondent cannot prevail here, despite what appears to be a case of serial fabrications here and elsewhere by petitioner. Under this ruling, the parties admittedly had a relationship that was previously romantic or intimate, however fleeting it might have been. Petitioner thus had a statutory avenue to seek a protective order, regardless of whether she fabricated her pregnancy. Moreover, Commissioner Duty did not issue the order based solely or even primarily on the fact of petitioner's pregnancy. Indeed, his initial order required that respondent not contact petitioner or communicate or post untrue or harassing comments regarding her online, included but not limited to social media, and shall not cause others to do the same. Moreover, Laura's initial petition referenced a myriad of communications respondents made to her that could be deemed threatening per the statutory guidelines and appears to have prompted Commissioner Duty to confirm the order after the hearing. Thus, even if petitioner's broader pregnancy allegations are proven true, one aspect of the court's order indicated that it found respondent had engaged in harassing conduct, so even on the merits, there is no cause to invalidate the final judgment. Now we're moving to sanctions. In this case, Clayton filed a motion for sanctions pursuant to Rule 26 on January 3rd, 2024, arguing that petitioner filed the underlying action for an improper purpose without medical evidence to support her claim that she was pregnant and or that she was pregnant by respondent. However, after significant motion practice between the parties' attorneys, respondent filed a motion to withdraw motions for sanctions on April 3rd while retaining his other claims. The question thus becomes, can this court still award Rule 26 sanctions considering respondent's withdrawal? So let's skip down to non-paternity. Some law that I don't know how to accurately say out loud provides a man is presumed to be the father of a child if, quote, genetic testing affirms at least a 95% probability of paternity. It provides that a man is presumed to be the father based on DNA testing that may only be rebutted by clear and convincing evidence. Based on a lack of confirmed pregnancy and repetitive RavGen tests results of little to no fetal DNA, the court cannot establish that petitioner was pregnant. The court cannot establish paternity of a non-confirmed pregnancy lacking DNA evidence despite testing twice. Here, 2 test results of little to no fetal DNA fall woefully short of the 95% required to meet the burden of clear and convincing evidence that respondent was the father of petitioner's alleged pregnancy. Attorneys' fees and costs. Clayton has requested an award of attorney's fees and costs. An award of attorney's fees and costs is governed by this law and provides as follows, which I don't know if we need to go through literally all of this, but this final ruling is available to you online if you want to read the entire thing. But I want to get down to what the court finds. Here we go, guys. The court finds there is no substantial disparity of financial resources between the parties. Petitioner did not provide an AFI, but testified that she and her mother collectively earned $200,000 a year. Respondent filed an AFI on May 15, 2024, citing a monthly income of $12,000 and an annual income of $144,000. The court further finds that petitioner acted unreasonably in the litigation. Specifically, petitioner Laura acted unreasonably when she initiated litigation without basis or merit, without an authentic ultrasound, sonogram, physical examination, and in conjunction with a belief she passed tissue in July 2023, the court finds the underlying petition premature at best. At worst, however, fraudulent and made to incite communication, a relationship, or both with Clayton. The court further finds that filing a motion seeking mediation for the purpose of telling the respondent that the pregnancies were not viable, disingenuous at best, but certainly misleading to the court. If the purpose of the motion was in fact to attend mediation, then the petitioner perjured herself today when she said the purpose of the mediation was to tell the respondent about the miscarriage. Either way, respondent likely incurred costs associated with this litigation prior to retaining counsel, and he is entitled to reimbursement for those costs. Woo! I want to celebrate and dance, but I also want to be professional for you. The court further finds that Laura repetitively failed to comply with Rule 49, even on the order of this court. Further compounded by the fact that on the day of trial, she testified that she anonymously sought care at a Planned Parenthood in Los Angeles, while she failed to provide records of any Planned Parenthood appointment, anonymous or under an alias. Respondent presumably sought records from all Mission Viejo Planned Parenthoods, as that is where, up until today, Laura disclosed she sought care. This undoubtedly caused respondent to incur substantial legal fees attempting to locate records that may or may not exist in Los Angeles, but now appear to have never existed in Mission Viejo. Additionally, Laura acknowledged that she altered HCG test results, an ultrasound, and a sonogram. The court further finds that the petitions of this law apply because the petition was not filed in good faith. The petition was not grounded in fact or based on law. The petition was filed for an improper purpose, such as to harass the other party, to cause an unnecessary delay, or to increase the cost of litigation on the other party. Here, the court finds petitioner provided false testimony as to the viability of the pregnancy in all three cases addressed in the procedural history. Additionally, prior to her deposition, petitioner sent a threatening letter to respondent indicating her intention to sue him for $1.4 million in collateral allegations unless he agreed to dismiss this action that she initiated. The court further finds that Laura Owens knowingly presented a false claim, knowingly violated a court order compelling disclosure or discovery such that an award of attorney fees and costs is appropriate. It is therefore ordered granting Clayton Echard's request for attorney's fees and costs associated with this. It is further ordered denying Clayton's request for attorney's fees and costs associated with the OOP and IAH hearings, referencing the analysis above. I believe she doesn't have jurisdiction to provide those attorney's fees. I'm not 100% sure. It is further ordered that Laura Owens shall pay Clayton's reasonable attorney's fees and costs not later than July 8th, 2024. Respondent and counsel for Clayton shall submit all necessary and appropriate documentation to support an application for an award of attorney's fees and costs, including a China doll affidavit and a form of proposed order. by no later than July 29th, 2024. Laura Owens shall file any written objection and a form of proposed order. If Clayton's counsel fails to submit the documentation by July 8th, no fees or costs will be awarded. The court shall determine the award and enter judgment upon review of the affidavit as well as any objection. It is further ordered granting the respondents Clayton's petition for non-paternity. It is further ordered that the court has determined that Laura Owens has a pattern of similar, if not identical, behavior and court involvement, referring this matter to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office for review of Laura Owens' actions pursuant to ARS numbers. Accordingly, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office will be endorsed on this order. Guys, justice has been served. I cannot express how happy I am for Clayton and Mike and Greg and Dave and everyone she's threatened. Oh my gosh, I feel such relief for Clayton. I mean, thank goodness this judge saw right through her. She did a fantastic job. This was beautifully written, and I'm shocked that they're referring this matter to the Attorney General's office. Like, this could become much bigger. It could become much bigger and only further help her previous victims. So, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know that was a lot to just listen to and take in. I'm going to try my best. Sometimes I forget. I'm going to leave the link to the Justice for Clayton Reddit in the pinned comment down below because they have a treasure trove of documents there. So you can check this out and read the entire thing start to finish if you would like. And Dave Neal's channel, obviously go check it out. Megan Fox. We have Lauren. I forget how to pronounce her last name. Reality Steve has been covering this. Tilted Lawyer. So if you want more information and you want extremely detailed information that I just could never cover in an hour-long video, go check out those channels, specifically Dave Neal's, and I just appreciate all y'all's support. If you came here from Dave Neal's channel, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for continuing your support, because without public outrage, I don't know if we would have gotten this result. Without Dave putting his neck on the line for Clayton, I don't think we would have gotten this result, especially because she shut Clayton up. He wasn't allowed to talk about it, really. So thank you guys so much. You guys are the all-stars. You're the reason I do what I do, and I hope that I can play a part similar to Dave with a cult group and hopefully help get these groups shut down and help protect people. But thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this little bonus episode this week, and I will see you in my next video very soon. So please stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. Until next time, bye y'all.